Now we're going to learn about the elements of design, shape, and form. Shape refers to 2D areas. They tend to be flat, and a shape encloses an area, where form is three-dimensional and it encloses or encompasses a volume or a mass. Now there are different degrees of three-dimensionality. We have the reliefs. We have low and high relief. This is a really good example of a low relief where there's minor etching, the shapes protrude out from the subject just a little bit. Now this is an excellent example of high relief where the sculpture is actually designed where it protrudes about halfway so you can see, the sides of the figures, but not the back. It's still one solid form, but it's really been sculpted out. Now this is an awesome piece of frontal work, and with frontal work, it's made to be seen straight on. So you have to be in front of the piece to really experience, the sculpture itself. Now, a full round sculpture is a lot more dynamic. As we see here with Thorn Puller, it's freestanding and it's designed to be seen from all sides. So you can enjoy it from the front, sides, back. You can walk around it. Walk-through landscapes are pretty awesome because you actually get to be in the sculpture. You're part of the environment. You're enjoying it while inside you can see it from the outside. And you can think about different gardens as well as gardens that are plants. You can think of the ones that create mazes or even just a simple rock garden. Characteristics of a three-dimensional form include creating exterior or interior contours, open or closed forms, static or dynamic forms. Surfaces are sometimes called contours. They may project outward or inward. And here Philip exaggerates the inward and outward contours of a woman's head, and it gives us the impression of great strength. Now let's talk about open or closed forms. Mainly early Western sculptures were closed forms that reflected the raw mass from which they have been carved. And generally they were just a large block and then they just reduced it down to the shape. With the development of metal casting, that allowed for fully open forms. And here in Horse and Sun Chariot, the spokes, they could not have been created in stone. This is one awesome form. Negative space or negative form is the unfilled but delineated areas. And then the positive space or positive form is the main material. When we talk about static forms appear to be still, they're unchanging. Dynamic forms are those that appear lively, moving, and changing, even though they're actually stationary. The Art Nouveau movement and applied art often worked with dynamic forms. Now let's move on to two-dimensional illusion of form. Many 2D works of art are designed to represent the 3D world, but they exist on a flat plane, kind of like a piece of paper, a sheet of paper, or a canvas, rather than in the 3D world of our experience. One of the earliest devices used to suggest 3D is overlapping, where you have one object that's covered up partially by another object. And it just gives that illusion of depth. Shading and modeling are another set of devices that brings out that sense of spatial depth. Another way is to show more than one side of a form indicating how it recedes in the distance. And we can consider this 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, multiple point perspective. The faces of the buildings angle away from each other, and the subsequent buildings that follow seem to be smaller and smaller as they recede from the artist's point of view. And gradually, once they get as close as they can to the vanishing point, they literally disappear. Shapes are a relatively flat surface area. Here's a very moving painting by Picasso called Guernica, and it's completely painted using flat shapes. I want you to understand the two main types of shapes, geometric and organic. Geometric shapes have long been used as a design element in many cultures. It's a shape that you give a specific name to. It can be a circle, triangle, rectangle, but an organic shape is more free form, what you find in nature, such as a leaf or a blade of grass. Here, the soft edge shapes have edges that are not precisely delineated. It is hard to pinpoint where one shape stops and another begins.